Hey, you all. All right, some of you are already watching. So this is just a simple live stream that I'm testing out here. Nothing too fancy. Leave some comments here in the chat. I don't do this very often, but I'm actually trying to get into some live sessions here on YouTube. So let me try to do something here. Just need to set up stuff. So I'm using Zoom for this test, but I'm gonna be setting up something more professional for doing streaming. I just actually wanted to just set up something really quick. Talk a little bit about Claude 4. Anthropic just released Claude 4, so just my takes and some of my opinions about the release. Just give me a second here, see if I can share my screen. All right. Let's see. All right. Yeah, just say hi in the chat, please. Say hi in the chat, and I'll just do a quick introduction here of what this release was about. And I'll monitor the chat just in case there's any questions, anything that you would like to hear my opinions on. Again, for those of you that are just joining, I'm trying to do a few like live sessions here, live streaming on YouTube, especially for like new releases. Specifically, this one will be about Claude 4. This is the first time I'm hearing about Claude 4. Obviously, there were some rumors, and they had like developer day recently. And so that's when they announced this. So let's go through this first, and then if you have any questions, again, let me know in the chat, and I'll just take those questions as we go. All right, so this one is Claude 4, and apparently there are two models. There's Opus 4 and Sonnet 4. Some of you may already be using models like Cloud Sonnet 3.7. All right, so you might be familiar with that. If you use products like Windsurf, you probably have been using this model a lot. This is one of my favorite models to use within Windsurf, especially for its reasoning capabilities. That's the one that I'm currently using. And apparently with these models, what they were targeting is a more advanced system for coding, advanced reasoning, and actually developing AI agents, which there is a lot of focus on that. So there's a nice video. I won't play the video here, but we always see with these announcements that these companies, they do like these quick demos, and they're nice because they show how internally employees are using this stuff. So that's great to see. All right, let me see. Alongside the models, where else? This is the first time I'm reading through this, by the way. I'm just going through this for the first time today, like now. And so let me just read through this really quickly. Okay, so we have extended thinking with tool use. That's a really important capability, right? If you're building like agentic systems, right? How you can extend further the tool use capabilities of the model. Like especially if you have a lot of tooling, I think that's really important to have something like this. And so now you can use it. You can use it with tools like web search, and you can use that when with extended thinking. So what does that look like? Well, I think the closest we have to that will be what OpenAI released, right? So if you use OpenAI, you use some of the I think it's O3 that has this ability to like use the tools. You can do search, right? You can interact with images, you can crop images, you can do all of these interesting things with the model. I think this is what this is about, and it's really cool to see that they have this now as a capability. All right, so newer model capabilities. So this one is more about following instructions more precisely. When given access to local files by developers, it demonstrates significantly improved memory capabilities, extracting and saving key facts to maintain continuity and build tactic knowledge over time. I guess this one has to do with like personalized applications, right? If you want to build, for instance, like some kind of agentic personal assistant, and this system has access to some kind of plan or some file where it saves the progress of anything or any task that it's trying to accomplish. it's good to have that memory capability, right? So I think this is probably available within Claude. I think here, probably, I'm not too sure where. I'll need to confirm that. Again, this is the first time I'm reading through this document. So I'll look into that. I think, again, this is what OpenAI has launched, right? It's nothing new, like memory capabilities within ChatGPT. How can you, like save memory and so forth? And that's really helpful for like long horizon tasks. That's really great to see. Again, will help a lot of the agentic systems that you're building today. Cloud Code is generally available. So Cloud Code is something that I've gotten into recently. I haven't really played around with it too much. There's a lot of competition. Obviously, OpenAI now has their own software engineering agent, right? The Codex, which you can use within ChatGPT. And obviously, this was around for some time now, way before Codex. And a lot of people are using this. A lot of developers are using it. And I heard that they recently also released some SDK for this, which means you can even do more with this stuff. And I think what they're announcing here is that they support background tasks via GitHub Actions, native integrations with VS Code, JetBrains displaying edits directly into your files for seamless peer programming. So that's what is announced. I think towards the end, they also talk a little bit about the SDK, but this is now generally available. New AI capabilities. So it says we're releasing 4 new capabilities on the Anthropic API that enable developers to build more powerful AI agents, the code execution tool, the MCP connector, files API, and the ability to cache prompts for up to 1 hour. Okay, so this, I think, is a bit like what already existed with, if I can recall this, with Gemini API, right? Because Gemini API, you can cache your prompt for a certain amount of time, and you can change that. So I don't think this is necessarily new. Let me see the code execution tool. If I click on this, what this is open. Okay, so this is another blog post that they released. All right, building better AI agents. Yeah, say hi in the chat if you just join us. All right, building better AI agents. Okay, so more about these toolings, I guess, code execution. So this is about code execution in the API. This is great as well. I think I already used something like this with the other LLM providers. Let's see, MCP connector. This is an interesting one. Right, so on the API, it enables developers to connect Claude to any remote model context protocol server without writing client code. All right. So what is this useful for? So when Claude receives a request with MCP servers configured, it automatically connects, retrieves the available tools, reasons about what tool to call, returns enhanced response with integrity data, and it manages authentication. That's actually useful. Yeah, so they announced some integrations with some of these providers. Yeah, I'll have to look into this and see what this is about. But there's more information here on the MCP connector. But that's nice that it's available in the APIs. I think all of these companies are now like investing heavily in MCP, and I mean, a lot of developers are building with MCP. A lot of like tools integrate MCP. So like it makes sense that they would have something like this in the APIs. This is not too surprising for me. I was mostly interested to see what is like the support. So limitations, again, this is going to be interesting. So the server must be publicly exposed to HTTP. Local SDK servers cannot be connected directly. That's what I was thinking. There are some limitations here. MCP connector is currently not supported on Amazon Bedrock and Google Vertex. And I use Google Vertex. So that really sucks that it's not available there yet. Okay, of the features set of MCP specification, only tools are currently supported. Yeah, so there's more details there. You can check that out. All right, so those are about MCP connector files API. This is nice because this is one thing I've been sort of experimenting with the other LLM providers as well, like managing files, uploading files, like processing files. Like if you have all these files, right, you can always like these serve as knowledge base. You can extract information out of them, like structured information, and that's why I think it's useful to have this kind of endpoint. You can imagine in an application, somebody wants to upload a document, right? The person uploads a document, then essentially what you would do there is you would process that document, and then you would show something, right? But you have an API, you don't have to build that yourself, that you can just tap into. And a lot of like chat applications would have that. most of the LLM providers have that kind of functionality. But I think a lot of applications that we build today would benefit from this, right? Even if it's like maybe an agentic application that you built that's in the background running, or maybe needs to check into some knowledge base, like from users or something like that, and then you would process these files. That's pretty useful. Not sure how good it is though. This probably have to do some comparison. Yeah, the prompt caching stuff, again, always very interesting to see what are the new things for prompt caching. So the thing that they were announcing is that you can now extend it to like 1 hour, right? So at an additional cost, a 12x improvement that can reduce expenses for long-running agent workflows. So that's what it's being announced here. All right, so those are just the tools. Let me go back here to the original one. All right, so I think that summarizes basically what Cloud 4 was about. I guess in summary, it would be like the extended thinking tool with tool use, new model capabilities, like the memory stuff. Then this Cloud code is now generally available, and then all the different tools that are now part of this, like code execution, MCP connector, files API, and so forth. All right, Cloud 4. So this is more information, I guess, about the model. Let me see what's interesting here. Yeah, so they have a lot of integrations already. You can see that they're calling that out here. Manus, GitHub, Cognition, Rakuten, Bulk, Replit. Yeah, so I like this because it tells you a little bit like how companies are using them. Improved precision and dramatic advancements for complex changes across multiple files. That's an interesting one. Let me see this one. All right, so this is refactoring. All right, Cognition. So that's the I think software engineering agent. GitHub. Okay, that's just more about coding. And then this one is a little bit about the deep research stuff. I guess Manus, very popular there. Follows complex instructions, clear reasoning, and aesthetic outputs. But yeah, this is going to be interesting, I think, because a lot of these reasoning models heavily trained to do step-by-step stuff, analysis, and so on, but not necessarily really good at producing like higher quality output, right? Like usually you would have to do like another turn to convert that output into something that's readable. And that's what I end up doing a lot of the times when I use for instance, when I use deep research with O3 within ChatGPT, and that's usually an issue. But apparently they're saying that at least Manus is getting better outputs. So that'll be interesting to look at closer. Software engineering, these are just benchmarks. What is the improvement? Let me see them. Again, looking at this for the first time. Hi, Habib. Hey. All right, let me see. Software engineering. All right, so Sonnet 4, Opus 4. Okay, so this one is a bit stronger than this. But I mean, look at the comparison with the other ones. It looks like this one is a lot more capable, right? With parallel test time compute. Okay, so those are really important details. Let's see. Okay, not sure what that means. I'll have to look into that afterwards. All right, but I think overall, like, I mean, what I typically do though, I try not to compare or reading too much into how it compares to the other models. Sometimes there's like not a fair comparison. What I do tend to look at more closely is the comparison with the previous models that they have, they have released, right? So this one would be the more interesting comparison. But you can see that there is a huge improvement, right? Huge jump in performance. So that's exciting to see. I mean, there is a huge gap in this accuracy performance in this SWE benchmark, which is more about software engineering, coding related. Yeah, these ones I wouldn't look into too much because usually there's some differences in how these companies are using these benchmarks. Sometimes it's internal, they're not public and so forth. There's a lot of different things that are wrong with these numbers. All right, so here again, we can take a look at the different capabilities. So like, for instance, like tool use, agentic tool use, you would see the comparison here. Again, not too much of a difference with this one. Yeah, I don't see, okay, here I see quite a jump in performance. So agentic terminal coding, that's interesting. So agentic coding, this one is Okay, so more coding related. Right, so this one would be more useful for things like Cloud Code that are more terminal based, right? Commands are different, right? Different environment and so on. Oh, I didn't know that there was actually a terminal, like an actual benchmark for that. That's interesting. But yeah, I won't compare. I wouldn't even talk about how it compares to these other models. But if you want to look at it, like look, this one would be interesting with the O tree because I think that's the most comparable one. The performance. I mean, yeah, for this one is. I mean, at the end of the day, I think, in my opinion, like Cloud is usually the better model for coding, but I think OpenAI and in particular Gemini 2.5 Pro have really caught up with Claude in terms of coding capabilities. So yeah, so it looks like that was the case with the 3.7, but it looked like this model has a lot better performance. So if this is an indicator of the performance boost and gains on capabilities like coding and so on, then I would say this model is probably a very good model and probably an increase in performance and capabilities, right? So but we still have to actually test that to know. Like these benchmarks don't really tell the whole story. Okay. Let me see. Hi. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I try to. I don't do as much content as I used to on YouTube. Sometimes I do very little content. More. I would love to do more content, and actually, the live sessions is something that I want to do more of. I don't even have a proper setup to do live sessions. I just tried this one because I just wanted to go live and I wanted to just test it out. But I'll probably have a better setup to do these live sessions. I think it's important. I love doing, like, we do a lot of live sessions with some of the other work that I do and I'm involved in. And I think it's just something to live sessions, like just, thinking and just sharing stuff, because this space is moving really fast, right? And I think it's really helpful to just have discussions and then like answer questions and share insights. And so I want to do more of these things in the future. So hopefully more of that, you know, I'll be doing more of that on my YouTube from my YouTube account. Yeah. Okay. Let me see. Yeah, I'm not too sure about that. I mean, the parallel test time computing. Yeah, it could be. It could be. I mean, that's what the parallel stuff implies. But not sure how that. Yeah, how that. Why they would do something like that here? Not. I haven't seen this kind of test. Yeah, maybe for speed or for. I'm not entirely sure why they would do it. I probably have to look at some technical report to understand that better. Yeah. I mean, because at the end of the day, these models, one thing you will know about these models is that, like for some of these tasks, like especially software engineering tasks, they take a longer time to complete, right? And so you probably have to figure out ways on how to, like how to run parallel tasks, and that's probably what they're trying to do, but to make it much faster and more efficient. But that's just my guess. I'm not sure if that's the actual thing that they're trying to achieve here. Yeah. Okay, so this one was interesting. I mean, there is some stuff going on with the Pokemon game. But I think what I wanted to highlight this, I briefly read this one in their post or Twitter post, is that they wanted to test like the memory capabilities, right? The ability to like store memory long term, like store key information. And apparently they say that the model, especially Opus 4, becomes skilled at creating and maintaining memory files when they like tried it with a game like this. So this is an actual example of something that they tried. And here it says, when given access to local files, the Cloud Opus 4 records key information to help improve its gameplay. The notes depicted above are real notes taken by Opus 4 while playing Pokemon. So this is an actual guide or something that the model used to improve its gameplay. This is interesting. I mean, this is for a game because a game obviously is a more long horizon task, right? It's more challenging for these systems because every action that you take, right, you can store information and the agent can learn from that information and use that potentially in the future, right? Let's say it did a mistake and then doesn't want to repeat that mistake or something like that, like key information. That's interesting. I think not something I've developed with, but maybe could be useful. And they say here, yeah, this one I wanted to call this one out. They've introduced thinking summaries for Claude 4, right? And then so like they use smaller model to condense the lengthy thought process. So the summarization is only needed 5% of the time because they claim that most thought processes are short enough to just display it full. So you don't actually need that much because it's according to them, it's a small percentage. I'm not sure what that means. But if it's a small number, why is it a small number? That's it. That's really the question for me. Users require a right chain of thoughts. Or okay, so if you wanted for more advanced prompt engineering stuff, you'll have to contact them, right? That's the catch there. Yeah, this is more the code, cloud code stuff. Yeah. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions, okay? I'm just going through this, just summarizing this stuff. I mean, I guess you will see the recording after. Yeah. Let me know if you have questions about this as I go through this. All right. Yeah, some integrations. This one was exciting. I think Cloud Code SDK. Now you can do a lot more. Let's play this. Oh, okay. So now you can just like tag it to your repos, and then just give it something, and they'll try to. That's nice. It's a nice convenient feature. And it can create a pull request, right? Verify link passes and so on. I mean, this is becoming standard now, right? Like all of these big LLM providers are going to start to do this stuff. So everything is going to become super, super agentic, I guess. Everything is going to, you're going to be able to leverage, you know, these agents for doing all kinds of interesting things. Let me see what else is announced here. Oh, yeah, so this one is more like how you would use it. Yeah, so for the GitHub stuff, this is now in beta. Yeah, so that's the GitHub. This is just to do the stuff that I called out here. See. Yeah, let me see what else. Yeah, so I think that's the launch itself. There is a, I think there is a, or what else? Nothing is provided. There's no model card. I did not see that. Yeah, there's nothing here. Ah, here it is. So I guess this is the thing that we were discussing earlier, right? The multiple parallel attempts. Okay. Okay. Yeah, this explains it, right? This explains the thing. And again, you can see here that they're doing a couple of things. We discard patches that break the visible regression test in the repository, similar to the rejection sampling approach adopted by Spaper. No hidden test information is used. Okay. We then use an internal scoring model to select the best candidate from the remaining attempts. Yeah, so I guess again it has to do with the because I mean for software engineering it's not like a basic standalone task, right? You would just do it, you could run it multiple times and you can get results. For these software engineering tasks, like you know, maybe dealing with multiple files, editing multiple files and things like that, you will have to make that process efficient because otherwise you're using a lot of computing. You won't be able to run that too many times. I guess this is the trick they're using for that. All right, that explains it. Anyway, so that's the summary of Claude 4, right? So I think the more interesting resource here would be to check out the API capabilities. For those of you that are using the APIs, I think there's a lot of interesting new things here. And then what I want to do here is I actually want to test out something. Let me see. Yeah, so I guess let me see if they do have a video here somewhere. I wanted to check. Okay, yeah, this one. Let me just do like, you won't be able to hear sound. I don't think you'll be able to hear any sound, but I just want to quick look at this, see what they're doing here. Right, so they have a lot of these integrations now. To be honest, like I've stopped using Claude. Like I've mostly shifted to ChatGPT now. I'm using the ChatGPT integrations. Before O3, I was using Claude a lot. Like I would use this one a lot, but I haven't used it in a while. So that's why I'm checking this to see what else, what new stuff they introduce here. I guess it's going to be useful for deep research, right? That's the thing that I'm seeing here. Okay, so that's the whole memory stuff that's going on there. Yeah, so that would be super, super useful. I mean, if you're doing stuff on the terminal, like you have access to files and knowledge base, that stuff will be extremely useful for the model, for the application itself. Let me see. Claude takes, okay, create structured task in Asana. Yeah, those are the integration things, the integration with like Asana and these other services. Yeah, I need to test the stuff out. I actually wanted to try these things in Cloud. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think I get the idea. Like that's really where they're going for, right? Like more like connecting with tools and using this model for more complicated tasks. Like you can a little bit like what O3 is doing. Like if you have used O3, where you can give it an image, it can crop the image, you can do analysis, like really advanced analysis on the image itself. I guess that's the direction, and I think the focus with them is like connecting with these apps, right? Connecting with all these different services. I haven't done that, so I won't do it here. I think that's the idea. Yeah. So all of this is very standard, I guess. Yeah. So they have the extended thinking here. I don't think that's new. Yeah, and the web search. Yeah. And I think I don't have access to deep research because I didn't see it here. I think that's more available for. I'm not sure what's the other plan after Pro because I have Pro, and I really don't want to upgrade because I'm having a blast with ChatGPT, deep research, and so on. So I don't feel like I need a new tool for this, unless there's like a significant difference, like in like how it does the outputs of the deep research and so on. Because that's the thing that I'm struggling with. The ChatGPT, the outputs are not that great because they're usually very very long, and usually not really like aligning with what I'm asking it, right? So that's the only thing I would look at, but I'll probably have to do some experiments around that. Yeah, I mean that's what I was saying earlier, right? Like it's probably comparable to Codex, the whole code stuff. Yeah, that's what I was saying like earlier. Let me see if I could go back here. Let's see where this was. Yeah, this whole cloud code stuff. That's something I've been recently getting into. Before this codex release, but I think that's what we want to like compare, right? We want to compare, you know, how something like this compares. It's really interesting, right? Because there's a lot of this initially started as CLI. Now I think there is some integration here. Again, I don't think I have access to it here. I don't see it, because I think this is part of the, or maybe there's another way to look at to get access to that. But we see the models here. The models are actually here now. Actually, let me try something here. What I want to do is I want to do an actual web search. Okay, collect information about the latest. I mean, I try like simple queries like this. Like these are day-to-day things that I do. So they're pretty useful for me. I collect information about the latest agent frameworks, new features. This is more to stay up to date with stuff. New features and some new use cases mentioned. So it should use the web search, and it should use this model, Cloud 4. Smart, efficient model for everyday use. And I guess this is the more powerful one, because Opus in this family of models, Opus is the more, yeah, it's the more, it consumes more more compute. Yeah, let me try it. And Cloud 24 is the default model. That's an interesting one. I mean, I want to look at the speed as well, right? So if I could probably do this here. I mean, this is a live stream, so if I make mistakes, I don't think it's the end of the world. All right, so I want to try the same thing. I'm going to try the same thing here, and I'm going to use search the web. Right, I'm using O3, so that's the comparable model. I want to do the same. So what happened here? Oh, what happened? Did it freeze? That's really weird. Try it again. And then I'm going to try it here. I'm going to try the same query. We're using O3. And I don't want to compare the up. Okay, so internal server error. So there is an error going on here. You can see it there. I'm not sure why. I guess a lot of people are using it. Let me try again. Let me check. What if I try the other one? Yeah, I would expect that not to work as well, because that's the, well, it looks like it's working. It's amateur coding skills and knowledge. And broad, yeah, okay. What would you recommend for them? Okay. Let me see. I think I misunderstood your question. I mean, if one has some relative amateur coding skills and knowledge, 0 to 5 year full-time and broad AI tool experience, what would you recommend for them? Focus on furthering coding skills, something else? Yeah, let me get to that question in a bit. That's a great question. Let me see what it did here. Okay, so this is not what I expected. It's doing a lot. So I want to compare here with O3. So this one took 1 minute and it already finished. And this one is still going, I think. Yeah, it's still going. I mean, I don't care how long it takes. Really, what I'm interested in is like if it's helpful, like if it's actually giving me information about this, even if I have to go back again and prompt it over again, that's fine by me. But I really wanted to give me useful information. Let's see what the case is here. Specialized and domain agents. Oh, it's actually still going. This one is still going. All right, so this one finished. And this one is still outputting. I mean, it finished the thinking. It finished the thinking here, but it's still outputting. Okay, so now it finished. Roughly the same amount of time, I guess. So let me just try to minimize this a bit here. And then look at both of these outputs. Let's look at this. So there are a couple of things that are really important here. So with something like this, obviously the model has to call the tool, and the tool in this case will be web search. And because this one is requiring the tool to do potentially multiple web search calls, it will have a lot of information to work with. So what does it do with that information? That's really the question here. And whether it can make sense out of that information, if it's different information, and output something that's really useful based on what I'm asking. So let me look at what it did here. So it looked at some sources. Let me search for more specific information about new features and recent use cases. Okay, so it looked at very similar sources again. And then here, they look a little bit different. Let me search for more specific information. Okay, all right. So it created a little plan and then it has all the info now. So now it's like ready to output. All right, so top frameworks, LangChain, LangGraph, right? And then Microsoft, CrewAI, Kernel, Swarm, Pydantic AI. I mean, if I'm being honest, there's a lot of popular frameworks that were left out here, especially the newer ones that are super popular. So that's one thing I will call out here. Let me see OpenAI now. OpenAI being OpenAI, I guess like they would be biased towards theirs, I guess. I don't know. It's just a joke. Yeah, so we have Agents SDK here. All right. Cloud Agent, not sure about that. Google ecosystem. Why would they call it Google ecosystem? Oh, okay. So OpenAI ecosystem, Google ecosystem, and then interpretability, the rise of protocols. I guess what I wanted was orchestration frameworks, not just any framework. So I guess I wasn't too specific. That's why it's looking at the protocols as well. But this is nice because these are some new things that were recently announced. So like AGUI, for instance, something that it's a protocol. LangChain, yeah, I read this recently. This is a nice one if you look at this, if you're building with agents. I don't know about this one. So the AutoGen stuff. Yeah, AutoGen. Okay, NVIDIA. All right, so they have the Nemotron reasoning models. Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised by this one. I would not expect this one to be mentioned in this report. So specialized and domain agents. I guess these are more specific agents that will launch, like Alpha Evolve. Not too familiar with this one. Emerging use cases. So the use cases are listed here. Scientific algorithm. Okay. I mean, I guess it's useful. Yeah, but it has a mixture of things, right? It's calling out protocols. The use cases we ask for them, and then here it's calling out these reasoning models. Like, yeah, there are a lot of different. It's a mixture of things that it's doing because I wasn't too specific. But let me see what Claude 4 did. All right. This, by the way, this looks more like an LLM output. This looks the format of it. That's interesting, right? Because like I think what O3 does really well, and why I like O3 is because one thing I tweeted recently is that the outputs are not always the same. Like it uses a different format sometimes, it uses a different style. And I like that. I like that it's not predictable in that sense. And then it has like tables like this and so on. But in general, when you do a web search, in general, these models, they tend to want to do like a list of things, which is not necessarily what you're looking for. So I guess if you're more specific here, that would help, but they're more biased towards this kind of output. You can see it with this one, and you can also see it with this one. I think Perplexity has a very similar behavior as well, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't used Perplexity in a while, so I wouldn't know what the latest one is doing. All right, so this one says stop frameworks, Urgent Query. Yeah, we went through this one. As I was saying, there are a couple of ones that were missing here, like the ADK is missing. OpenAI SDK, Agent SDK is missing as well, and some other ones. So new features, core architectural improvements. What is the improvements? Yeah, this doesn't look like, yeah, that doesn't look too useful for me. Yeah, this is, I mean, that's what sometimes, like it's harder for me to read this. I guess it's also more like a preference thing. Like I like the outputs here for some reason. Like I like the structure of it. I don't know if it has to do with the formatting as well. It might even be the font itself. I just find it harder to read this type of outputs. This is what I'm trying to say here. It's more, again, it could be a preference thing. Microsoft specific advancements. Yeah, it looks like an LLM output, right? It definitely feels like it. Well, it's an LLM at the end of the day, but I guess this is my point. My point is that the output is usually a struggle with these reasoning models. And I'm always looking at the models that can generate like better and more stylistic outputs. Because it matters, right? When you're producing outputs like this, like it really matters how that output looks. Because otherwise it'd be hard to read the output. Okay, I like this one, the enterprise applications, customer service, scientific research, content creation, healthcare energy, real world implementations. All right, so this is an interesting one. I haven't seen much from Uber. I guess that would be an interesting link to click at. Okay, so I like these ones. I actually like this section here because I didn't see that with O3 implementations. BMW, hopefully they are actual links. Yeah, they look like actual links. Market outlook, IBM did a survey. So these are just some surveys and so on. How do I grade this? I don't know. There are certain things that I like. I like this part here. I think this part is nice as well. I had no issue with this one. I would have preferred this on maybe using a different format. I know a few notable frameworks are missing from the list as well, because I'm familiar with this space, and because I'm aware of that, I probably would rate it a little bit lower. And then this one, I like this one on the list of things. I'm even wondering if this, I'm not sure. I have to verify this. I'm even wondering um if this has memory, like if it has memory of my previous ChatGPT usage, because I'm developing a lot with this, and I'm developing a lot with this, and I'm developing a lot with this one. And these ones are just things that I recently checked into, right? But I haven't really developed with those. So it's really interesting that it called those out like right on the front page of this output. That's really interesting. It could be doing that. I don't know. Like a lot of things I don't know about how ChatGPT works behind the scenes. Yeah, this looks more generic. But I think the outputs are still great, right? Like the both are still useful. It's just more a preference thing, I guess. Just the style of the output is the issue. Yeah, anything you want me to try, I can try it. Is there anything? I actually will spend, maybe I potentially do a video on this because I've been getting a lot of questions about Cloud Code, and also like the Codex CLI as well, how it works, what to use it for and so on. We're mostly testing with my personal projects, not really going crazy with it, but I think it could be an interesting experiment since all of these companies are producing their own coding agents. Even Google is trying to do this. So it'd be great to like just test it out and see what it can do. Like I'm just interested to see if like Codex can complete like complex things. Like I mean, if it can do basic PRs, like basic PRs, I'm not too interested in that. But if it can improve like my code, like the quality of the code, like commenting things like that in code, improve readability of code, especially if I'm working with others on projects, that could be interesting. Solving maybe some feature, adding features to projects that I just didn't have time to implement. That would be interesting to just go and test it out. I mean, a lot of the things, a lot of like web applications that I built have a lot of repetitive tasks. So I wouldn't be surprised if it can do a lot of that stuff. But like I think it's more about the style of the code and optimizing the code, things like that. I'm interested in testing, not necessarily the things that we have developers that developers can do really well. So now I think I can get to that question because I'm talking about this already. So I'll repeat the question and then try to answer it. So the question is, if one has just some relative amateur coding skills and knowledge, right, and broad AI tool experience, what would you recommend for them? Focus on furthering coding skills or something else? Yeah, that's a good question. I think the way I think about these tools, the way how I use them, like we use them in our business and so on, and for my own personal projects, like I like to think of these tools as like enablers, right? Like they enable like new things that I can do with it, not necessarily replace. This is what I was talking about, this idea of using potentially Codex to maybe improve the code, because I'm very sloppy with my code. Like I don't like I just want to release features. I think a lot of web application builders are like that. Like they just want to release features, right? They're very eager to release features and they don't really pay attention to like code style, optimizing code, for instance, as well, and so on. Like those are the things that I want to use AI for. Those are the things I want to use Cloud. I want to use Codex for. I don't like I never think with these tools. I mean, this is just coding, but I would say for other use cases as well, like deep research is another one. I want to use them to enhance basically my workflow, right? Like the stuff that I love doing, and like I already can code very complex things. Like I prefer to code on my own. Like I don't like autocomplete there, because I love to understand my code, and I think understanding code, right, understanding your code bases and so on, is pretty useful even in this age of software engineering agents. Because then, what are you asking the system to do, right? If you don't know the code base and you don't understand code, um, how are you going to leverage that? Are you just going to leverage that to do very basic things? Then I don't think AI is that useful for basic things. So that's, I think, my argument. My argument is like focus on things that you're like not comfortable with. Focus on things that you think you're spending a lot of time on that you might use an AI for. Those would be like, optimizing code for me. It would be yeah, it would be like doing tests, for instance, as I hate doing tests, but you have to do tests when you're developing code, applications, things like that, right? Code that was another interesting use case, by the way, like generating tests. What else? Maybe even creating a new feature if I think that would take long. But again, I can only assess that if I understand my code base. Like a lot of people do this, right? Like they talk about, oh, AI for code, and they create this little like simple apps and things like that, and they would say, oh, no, AI is like replacing software engineers. But if you know what it takes to actually develop software and applications, and even simple applications, you know that there's a lot to it, right? And understanding all those concepts, authentication, things like that, it's useful, even if like you're gonna use these agents. So yeah, overall, I think of it more like augmentation, right? How does it augment what I do? How it's useful for what I do, and in that process, try to figure out new ways on how that AI can be useful for me. So I guess if you're like a beginner, I know it's overwhelming. I know you feel like, oh, so much people are using this. They probably are experts already. If there's an expert coder with 10 plus years, and they're using AI, like what's the chances for me, right? Like I think a lot of people think like that, especially juniors. But I don't think that's the right way to look at it. I think the better way to look at it is like, what it can do, right? How it can extend my ability to code. Like there's so much aspects of coding, and I think if that's a more healthy view of how do you apply AI in a daily life, I think that's what I do. And it happens with coding, and also it happens with like tools like deep research. So for deep research, I've spoken about this here. We have done some webinars about this stuff. Like I'm not using basic stuff, right? Like I do research. I love doing research. I go read papers, read about the industry, do like this type of requests, right? This type of analysis. I would just go do that myself. Like I don't want to use an AI for that, and I find that to be extremely valuable and good use of my time. And as you can see, this is not perfect. This is just not perfect, and I use both models, and it's still missing a lot of information. That's just to give you a simple example. So like doing the process of that and then figuring out ways on how you would use the AI to augment it. So let's say this is a very high level like request. And I know that the agent probably really sucks at looking for the newer like frameworks. So in that case, if that is the case, then I'll probably need to give it like a table of frameworks to focus on, and then tell it, okay, maybe do a little bit of digging into your docs or something like that and find out what's exactly new with these agent frameworks. So I'll have to guide it a bit. But the only way I can do that is if I've built expertise over the years for things like this. If I don't have the expertise, how do I even assess whether this is even useful? And it's the same for code. It's the same for deep research. I think that's just a trend. It's going to be the same for what people are saying, like scientific discoveries, things like that, right? Who's going to assess that? Who's going to, how are you going to build the expertise for that? Is it an AI giving you that expertise, or is it you still needed to build that expertise in a traditional way? So do we still need education? Do we still need schools? Things like that. Those are interesting philosophical questions. And I think I value expertise a lot. Like anybody that's using AI, like if I were hiring like a lot of developers, like yes, I'm interested in you understanding how to operate code bases and things like that. And I'm also interested to know how you're using AI. I'm interested in both, because I think you can unlock a lot with AI. It's not something you can simply ignore. So yes, so expanding skills, right? Looking for those areas where you're not too comfortable, but at the same time, figuring out exciting and new ways how you would use the technology, and you get that thrill, right? Like if you get it to do something that, let's say, for argument's sake, like you develop a web application and you hate the aspect of like testing your features, right? You hate that aspect of it. And let's say that's something that maybe you want to offload. You can use an AI for that. You can use Codex or something like that, and it generates a test for you. And then you're like, oh well, the test it looks like it's passing, and you are happy with the quality of that. I mean, do you actually need to go and learn how to generate tests if the tests are good enough now? Maybe not, right? And it's not going to be something that everybody is going to want to do. Like not everyone is going to use AI that way. Some people don't trust AI to actually use it for test generation. I know a lot of people like that, but it's really like preference, but it's also thinking how does it augment, right? How does it complement what I'm doing? It's not necessarily replacing. So that's the argument that I always make, and it doesn't matter for which use case. It's the same. It always is the same way I'm looking at it. It's just a framework of thinking. Does that make sense? I know I went on a really long explanation there, but I think that's one of to expand more on that personally, that's one of the reasons why I actually started this YouTube channel. And I realized that I only want to explore like new ways on how to use AI. I actually don't find it interesting to like use AI for like basic things. Like I want to unlock something new. So as an example, like I'll give you a very basic example, and I'll give you a more complex example since we're on this post here. So let me give you the basic example. So I saw Manus here. Let me see. Manus, where is it? Here. And some of you might have used Manus, right? Manus apparently was, I don't know, it was hyped up and a lot of people were using Manus, do like deep research reports and so on. So one very simple, I think, thing that I'm interested in these models, like, is the output quality, right? I know a lot of people don't think about that, but because I work with a lot of LLM applications, a lot of builders, and a lot of companies, I understand that that's going to usually lead to like production ready applications. If this is not working, it doesn't matter your workflow. It doesn't matter how complex it is. So, and this is one. The other one is this one. So those are basic examples. If it can follow instructions, if it can actually do what I'm asking it to do, something like this instruction here, if it can do that. And it turns out that it cannot do that really well, even the better models. So those are the new areas that I want to explore. Can it output something unique? Can it give me a really good style that I'm very happy with without me trying too hard? And if I'm trying, what is exactly the thing that's missing? What is the gap that I need to fill? So that's a very basic example of things that I get excited about because I know there's some business value tied to it. So that's one simple example. I'll give you another example now, another more complex example. Let me see if I can use these. Yeah, so this will be more on the coding end. And it has another example is cursor here, complex code-based understanding. So one thing you'll know from using these tools for coding is that like they're great at very simple auto code, code generation, very simple code generation, like on single files. But once it moves into multiple files, like something happens, like maybe too much information in a context, and it usually leads to a lot of weird type of things that are generated by the model, right? So sometimes you'll see like in the code I'm seeing, and this is why it's really important to understand your code base, because you will see this all the time. So it generates a function, then it says, oh, this is a dummy function, and then it has some data, it's passing some data, because it's a dummy function, right? I don't know where it learned that in its training data. I don't know where it actually captured that or why that's happening, but I have a feeling it's happening because it's probably the system is probably eager to complete the task that you asked it to do, and it's trying to rush and take shortcuts with other things. And you will see that when you put long context in these with these LLMs. So the point I'm trying to make here is that, like, if you have some code base, I mean, you can literally go to GitHub, if you don't have a code base, find some open source code base, so like a new popular agent framework or something like that. Maybe somebody had an issue on some agent framework, something is not supported, and just import that open source project into Codex, ask it to do something really complex, add a functionality or something like that, and then just test it. I mean, data is out there, like projects are out there to experiment. And that's the most interesting thing for me. That's the more interesting thing, actually. Like, can it do these complex things? Not generate a single file of code or a single script. Can it understand like an entire code base, understanding the limitation of these LLMs that they struggle with longer and longer context. Doesn't matter if it's reasoning LLMs, doesn't matter if it's standard chat LLMs. Same goes for both types of systems. So that's why I think I like this blog, because I like the use cases. I like the, what these companies did, what they were solving, and they are highlighting exactly what these companies, like where they're getting the most value, right? Whether users are getting the most value. So that's why I like to think about this. Let me see if I can find another good example here. So these are all code. Yeah, a lot of code stuff, a lot of, okay, so any reports. Autonomous multi-feature app development, as well as sustainability, improves problem solving, code-based navigation, reducing navigation errors from 20. Yeah, I guess it's a little bit different. Yeah, it's still about app development, because there's a lot of focus on code here. Yeah, so another one, I think, as we think I'm going to end the session in like a couple of minutes now. So another one, if you're interested in exploring, okay, yeah, I said a comment. Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that's a great question. So yeah, I mean, another area, like if you want to go and think deeply about this stuff, hopefully I'm kind of, I want to encourage people to think deeply about this technology, right? I think there's a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of stuff that's very super surface, and even that is exciting, yes, sometimes, because it's useful and it gives you some value. But I think deeply about it, actually understanding, reading those papers, understanding every little, like every little note, right? Every little thing that's happening here, that goes a long way. And that's what I'm trying to bring in here with this content. And this is why I'm not publishing as much videos on YouTube now as before, because I think I was guilty of that. And I want to do better with my YouTube account. And I want to like encourage people to think more deeply about the systems and think about like how you can build value with it, right? How you can augment whatever workflow you're working on. So I think this is an interesting one, like memory. We have had lots of conversations about this stuff with people that are actually building like memory solutions. And there's so much exciting like innovation that's happening just on the memory front of things. Like we understand how important memory is, right, for building personalized applications. But you don't even need to build, though. You don't even need to be a coder for this. Like you can just go to ChatGPT and you can test the memory capabilities there. And if you see that it unlocks something, like you test it, you test the memory stuff, like it function, right? You understand how it works, how you store memories and so on. Like if you see something really interesting happening there, you like aggressively go to understand this and aggressively use it, right? That could lead to some interesting like insights that could improve your workflow that no one else has. And I think that's what a lot of people are not aware of. Like they're aware of like, oh, the LLM is here, that this is an O3, is a reasoning models and so on. But if you actually check line by line what's going on here, you will see that very interesting things are happening. Like how does it searches, how it plans the search, what is it, ask yourself, like what is it using as part of the search? Okay, so how did it generate this query? And so iterate on it. So maybe these are not great, maybe it's missing some context or some information, then I would go back here and then I would iterate. So you don't have to use APIs, you don't have to be building any application for this. You could literally be doing this within these like solutions. I know that we can connect tools more easily here. Like you can connect like PDS files, things like that. You can connect, I think you can connect MCP servers, things like that here as well. Like it gets even more interesting. Like how can you actually use all of those tools, right? How does the model perform? Assess the output quality of it. Is it using those tools properly? Because I've heard a lot of complaints, right? Like some of these integrations that actually don't work. And I'm hearing from people that are pretty skilled with AI, by the way, saying this, that they use MCP server, but they just don't get anything from it. Like they don't get value from it. The integrations are not actually working. So if you can solve that for someone, that's tremendously valuable, I think. That's just my opinion about this topic. there's a lot of this deep stuff that just get lost. And everyone is just focusing on the hype and just like oh, MCPs are great, and then that's it. It's just that's the end of it. But there's a lot of interesting issues. There's a lot of like, how do you do like authentication stuff if that's something you like? How do you make this faster? How can you combine like MCP servers? You can combine tools. Lots of interesting ideas. These are things that we talk a lot about in some of our communities. So that's how I like to think of it. Anyways, I'll probably end this stream now. It's like 1 hour already. Yeah, 1 hour exactly. And I'll try to do this again. I'll try to do this, I don't know, once starting. I'll probably try to do it once every 2 weeks or something like that, and potentially do it once every week. And then let's see how it goes. And I'll try to improve my video streaming here as well. See how it goes as well with that. But yeah, I'll be excited to do this. And if you have any questions, actually reach out to me on Twitter. Yeah, Twitter is the place that you can reach out to me. DM me there if you have any specific questions you need help with. I'm always happy to help and guide people, especially folks that are new into the space. Yeah, just connect here and send me some questions. So yeah, that's the place. And then I don't use LinkedIn as often. I'm mostly just cross-posting on LinkedIn, but you can reach out to me there too. And reach out to me, and if you have an interesting use case, anything like that you want to explore, that's another place you can catch me. And besides that, I would say maybe a little plug, not necessarily a plug, but I would say like where I spend a lot of my time if I'm not building like applications, I am spending my time in my community, right? We're like community of builders, people building stuff and teaching them, enabling them how to build things. I enjoy that stuff, enjoy doing this. That's where I spend a lot of my time. So we have a lot of like live courses, live sessions, office hours. We bring in guest speakers, like expert speakers to our community. So there's a lot of really cool stuff going on behind the scenes that I don't get to talk about too much, but if that's something that interests you, I'll link this here. On the surface, it looks like a lot of courses, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of interesting things going on. And this is why I did this because I really want to encourage people to like think deeply about the technology as opposed to like on the surface. That's where I see the most value. All right, I'll close it there. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.